Welcome back to Roadmap to Retirement, the podcast. I'm Alex Neer, your host.
This is Roadmap to Retirement. Tune in for financial tips, investment strategies, and smart money moves to supercharge your retirement savings. Alex Neary, CFP, and guests are here to help you build your roadmap to retirement.
We are flying solo today. Today's episode, we're going to do a kind of client mailbag episode. So I've got a series of questions that have been submitted by clients and listeners. So I thought we would run through those. I won't spend too much time on any one particular topic, but I think these are questions that are on your mind. So let's take a few minutes to go through them. First question. So we get a lot of this one, and I talked about it on one of our last episodes also, but it's part of the FIRE movement. So financial independence, retire early. You'll see a lot of this online. It's usually younger professionals that have a goal of retiring early or just before the traditional retirement age. So it might be a 20 or 30 something year old who says, I want to retire by 40, I want to retire by 50, whatever the age is. And it's really, there's different ways to look at it. I think for me, it's about putting yourself in a position to walk away from needing a salary early in your life. It doesn't necessarily mean you won't work. You might find a lot of meaning in your career and other reasons to work besides financial ones. So it's an interesting idea, and it really comes down to math problems. So what do I need to do today to make sure that I'm in position to retire at age 50? Let's just use that number. So the exact question that was submitted to me is, I want to retire early. What should I be doing differently starting today? And I do know a little bit about this person's background because I know who they are. So they are in their early 30s. We've had conversations in the past of retiring at 45 or 50, but for today, let's just say 50. And they're a very good saver. They're saving money into their 401k plan at work. They do have a Roth they contribute to. They are trying to pay down their mortgage early. So they're doing a lot of things to get there. So the base of the question, what can I do differently than the typical person who retires at 65? If you are retiring at 50, you've got a couple issues. One is you do need to take money out of somewhere between age 50 and age 59 and a half or 55 when we can traditionally access pre-tax money without penalty. And there's some ways around that. If you look up 72T, we can get into that a little bit, but that allows you to take distributions before traditional retirement age. They can always pull money back out of a Roth IRA. So if they have basis in the Roth, they have access to that before 59 and a half. But even those things aside, I still want to create some liquid asset that I can tap into between age 50 years old when I retire and whatever age I can traditionally tap into my retirement assets. So I think one tip for this person is it will be important to start saving into a non-retirement brokerage account of some type, some kind of investment vehicle where you can put money in and you don't have to wait until a certain age to draw out of it. So if you are that young professional, pick a number. Maybe it's $100 a month, maybe it's $1,000 a month, whatever you can do, and start contributing it to an account that you have access to early. That will also, by necessity, probably force you to change your spending habits. And really the key to this retire early development is you can look at it and say, well, I'm sacrificing so much enjoyment early on in my life to retire early. Is it worth it? Should I give up taking vacations and spending time with family and doing all of these things to be hell-bent on retiring at age 50? Probably not. But if you're saving money into a brokerage account and you're making sacrifices to do that, maybe you're sacrificing things like you're driving a Honda instead of a BMW, or you're flying coach instead of first class. And you still get a lot of enjoyment out of life by doing that. So my direct answer is, if your goal is to retire early, set up some kind of liquid pool of assets that are invested, that are growing, but allow you to get access earlier. So if you do choose to stop working, again, at age 50, you've got a way to do that. All right, I spent more time on that question than I thought I would. Next question. We run into this a lot, but this person says, my friend started at, I won't name a company, my friend started at XYZ insurance company, and they want me to buy a whole life insurance policy. Should I do that? We get this question a lot from people that want to help out their friend who's early in this business, and they are not picking on anybody, but they're in a position where they need to sell a product to generate income for themselves, and they usually start by going out to friends and family to do that. We all went through that. I went through that. I'm not ashamed to say it. But the question is it right for me to help out my friend in this way by buying the product? Sometimes. It's hard to say without knowing much background. Again, I do know more about the person that submitted this question. I do know their situation, and I can say with confidence, because I am their financial planner, that it does not fit into their financial plan. The whole life policy does not make sense for this person. That doesn't mean it never makes sense. So I don't have a direct answer other than probably not. always go back to the plan. Don't start with a product. It's not, should I buy a whole life policy? It's, what does my financial plan dictate? And based on the plan, what are the investments or insurance policies that I need? So always start with the plan and then work your way backwards to the products, if you can use the word product. All right, that one was quick. Next, should I buy silver? That is the kind of question of the last 6 to 18 months. And I think it's interesting with something like silver. I'm not going to play the crystal ball game. I'm not going to tell you where I think it's going. It's not worth getting into that. But it's interesting with silver that when I feel like when I start to get the question from people that are not financially literate, so if there's somebody in my life that doesn't pay attention to finances at all, and they call me up and say, "Hey, Alex, do you think I should buy silver?" That kind of signifies like we've gotten to a certain point on this run. And I'm not going to say we're at the end, but a lot of opportunities have been missed by the time that person says that. So in short, should you buy silver? Maybe. I would say as an advisor, we're always talking about using a diversified portfolio. You're going to hear that term a ton. So should I have all my money in silver? Absolutely not. Should I put a sliver of my money into silver? Sliver into silver? Maybe. Maybe it's a 3% holding in your account, but I would not be chasing returns, if that makes sense. I don't want to buy the thing that's been hot for the last 6 months because I might be at the end of the run on that. In investing, we always want to try to buy low, sell high, which is a simple concept. It's harder to execute. And I think when you look at something like silver today, you're probably letting your emotions get the better of you and looking at what's been hot. So leave it there. Disclosure, that was not a prediction, just some basic thoughts. Next question. We run into this one not as often as the silver one, but we maybe when onboarding a new client, and I had this one recently, I'll read the question verbatim, was, I like how they phrase that. I have too much money in one stock and I know it, but I don't want to pay taxes on it. So this would be somebody that has money in a non-retirement account, just a regular investment brokerage account, and they bought a lot of stock. So let's say, I'm going to pick a company. Let's say you bought Apple stock and you bought a whole bunch of Apple stock in the early 90s. And you've been on this 30-something year run and it's gone awesome. But now you're looking at your account and you have a huge capital gain if you walk away. So if you don't know, capital gain works that you have a cost basis. So let's say I bought a stock for $100. It grew to $1,000. My cost basis is still $100. So if I sell that stock, I need to pay tax on the $900 gain. Capital gains tax rates can be 0. They can be 15. They can be 20%. Most people are going to pay a 15% capital gain tax. So this question, is it worth me paying 15% on the gains of my stock to walk away from it and properly diversify? It depends. The answer is always it depends. There are other tax ramifications outside of just that capital gains tax. It might affect the way that you get healthcare. It might affect the way that your kids qualify for student aid. It might affect your child tax credit if you have kids at home. So there's more than just that tax you're paying. But generally speaking, I would still want to take exposure off the table. If I have 90% of my net worth in one single stock, if you're listening to this, you already know where this can go, but it can go to 0. You can lose 90% of your net worth in a day. It's unlikely, but you could. So to me, taking a 15% haircut to properly diversify is worth it. There's different ways you could do it. You could try to do it over 2 tax years. So it's February now, but if you're listening to this in January or in December rather, it might make sense to sell half of your stock in December and then wait a few weeks and sell half of it in January. And now I've spread it out over 2 tax years. Or you might say, I'm emotionally tied to the stock that I've had since the 90s. It's really hard for me to walk away. So I'm not going to sell all of it, but if I can convince myself to sell half of it and just take my ball and go home with some of it, I think that can make sense. Nobody likes paying taxes. I get it, but I would rather lose 15% to the government than lose all of it. Or more realistically, yeah, it's probably not going to 0 tomorrow. That's a little bit of fear mongering, but it could decrease by 20% in value in the next year. That happens all the time. So would you rather sit there and watch your stock depreciate by 20% in value, or would you rather get rid of it today and just pay 15% tax and then get in a diversified portfolio? And the diversified portfolio might still lose value. That happens. But we feel relatively confident that in the long term, a well-structured diversified portfolio will make money eventually with a lot of ups and downs. No crystal ball, but that's what's happened historically. So fun question. The next question, and actually we're going to, for time's sake, this will be the last one for today. I do have some more that maybe we'll do next month or next episode. We'll see how it plays out. But another common one that we're getting in the year 2026 is, I have purchased a home. back in 2020. And I bought it at a very low interest rate. I might have a mortgage that's 3 something percent, 3.5% mortgage on my house I bought in 2020. But I kind of want to move. Is it stupid to move? And that's how this person phrased it. They say, is it stupid to move and give up that interest rate? But not really. So this is where like finances meet real life. It's really easy for me as a financial advisor to stand on my soapbox and say, never give up your interest rate. It's financially optimal to stay plugged into that low interest rate and invest the difference and do all this stuff. But if your family is bursting at the seams and you've filled that house and you need more space, you might not have a choice. If you want to get your kids into a different, better school district, you might not have a choice. If your job is out of state and you've got to move, then it is what it is. But to the extent that you control it, I'd rather stay with that low interest rate. But do I practice what I preach? No. I sold a house and have a higher interest rate. So I've been there. It can be worth it. Interest rates have come down a little bit, so it's not as bad as it was a year ago. They might come down in the future. At some point, they probably will, so you can refinance if you need to. So there's more to that question than just the interest rate. Again, I know who submitted this question. I know a little bit about their background. I know they don't need to move, but they probably are going to move. Their family's growing, and it makes sense. So that's my answer on that. But it is tough to walk away from the low interest rate, and it'd be nice if you could just keep it, but you can't. So those are the, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions submitted from listeners/clients. If you have questions of your own, feel free to do that. You can email them to me. You can send them on LinkedIn, whatever you want to do. And we will try to get them into our next client mailbag episode. And then I've been ending these solo podcast episodes by going through my list of questions you should ask a financial advisor. So I've got a list printed out. I've got it in PDF form, but it is 10 questions, I think, that we feel you should be asking your financial advisor before you sign up to work with them formally. So if you're in that process of vetting advisors, I think it's really helpful. So the last few episodes, I pulled one question from that list, and we'll do the same today. So today's question is, what credentials do you have? And if you don't know it, the financial advisor world is full of all these different letters and licenses and things that can be after your name. And it's very confusing, or can be very confusing if you're not familiar with it. What should you be looking for? I think the CFP, Certified Financial Planner, is still the gold standard in our industry. It is the one that young professionals are generally striving for. It is 6 parts. So you say you have 6 courses you need to go through, and then there's a cumulative final. So it is a little bit of work. It's work to get. It can be difficult. I think the value in any credential is the continued education, so that they make you continue to learn and stay up to date on things as you move throughout your career. So CFP is important, but it doesn't mean that a good advisor, you might find a good advisor that doesn't have the CFP. You might find a bad advisor that does have the CFP. There are lots of those. So definitely ask about credentials. There's other credentials out there that are good too, but I don't think it's the end all, but I do think it's something that you should ask. And if a advisor you're talking to does not have the credentials that you think they should have, maybe they have a good reason why, maybe they don't. So we are going to wrap it up there. Thank you for listening. If you have questions, feel free to submit them, and we will do our best to get to them. Thanks.
Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA and SIPC. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision. Individual tax or legal matters should be discussed with your tax or legal professional.